We have a guest in the studio who's come all the way from Australia to participate in this year's Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. I've put you into that mix. Joel Kipchumba is one of the leaders of the Kenyan community in Australia. Good morning, Joel.
Yeah, good morning, Latif.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
I appreciate it.
Karibu sana. So, you participate in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, eh?
I used to run in college, but it looks like I will have to register this one.
Just
now
register.
that
It's chap chap.
me.
NairobiMarathon.com, 2000 bob, run.
I'll be on it.
And if you don't want to run, walk.
You can start with the 42-kilometer run.
And then end up with a 5-kilometer
Yeah,
walk.
then you can end up with a 5 kilometer.
I mean, my name portrays me, so really.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation. It's good to have you around.
Yes, Auntie.
City has the day's proverb, and this week's proverbs are from...
The United Republic of Tanzania.
All right.
It's not just republic, it's united.
It's not democratic, it's reunited.
The democracy can follow the unification. Right. Every bird flies with its own wings.
Every bird flies with its own wings. Joel was prepared to write that one down. Then that's an easy one. I don't even need to write it down. What's the interpretation of it?
Oh, well, I guess really, simply put, we are all born into families. You might be having brothers and sisters, but at the end of the day, of course, you're raised together.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, you make your own decisions, you write your own path, and I think that would be something closely related to that.
City. Bwana wampatia maksi ngapi huyu bwana?
Bwana huyu tuseme kwa ufupi hajakosa chochote.
Amepata zote.
Zote bwana.
Well done.
Amepita mtihani.
That's a good one.
Sasa tumpatwe shangwe na vigelegele sio?
Kabisa. Kabisa na nderemo na vifijo.
Yes.
Yeah. After all, it's Utamaduni Day. Happy Utamaduni Day.
Oh, thank you.
How long have you been in Australia and what do you do there?
So I started off in United States. That was way back in 2006. Went there for school and athletic scholarship. After that, nikamaliza, and then I came back home a bit. Then I left Kenya for Australia in 2014 up to now. Just went there for work, and then at some point I realized I needed to upskill. So I went back for public policy, governance and law at Macquarie University. And thereafter, now I work for Department of Communities and Justice, based in a small city called Albury, Wodonga.
Wodonga.
Yes,
Right.
It's a border city.
Okay.
Yes.
When you are a leader of the Kenyan community in Australia, describe for us the community in Australia. How many people are we talking about? What the mix like? Where are they?
So, according to statistics found on the website of UNESCO, apparently there are only 15,000 to 20,000 Kenyan students there. Majority of Kenyans in Australia are students. Of course, there are those who have now started migrating there as workers, especially healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses, and of course engineers, people from Safaricom and other telcos. They've moved there in the recent time. Yes, but majority of Kenyans are either students or when they are students, they've graduated, they found work, which is really amazing because Kenyan people are really hardworking. Yes.
How is it organized, the community? Is there one association, one union, or are they different associations depending on the region?
Yes. So Australia has about 7 states, so the states and territories. So territories are a little bit smaller, and they are for administrative purposes. So I think majority of Kenyans are in New South Wales, which is people know Sydney really, and then Melbourne and Perth, mostly students. How are they organized? Well, they are what is it called? The Diaspora policy envisioned Kenyan communities where it's organized like devolution, where you organize according to the region where you are. So in Sydney, for example, we have a lot of organizations, but there is one umbrella body called Kenya Diaspora Board. So I'm a member of Kenya Diaspora Board. We have our leadership there, but this is an umbrella body for the smaller organizations. Yes.
When you say smaller organizations, what do you mean?
So, Kenyans have, well, depending on where you are in life, right? There's needs that you need. So, for example, if you're a student, you would need a welfare organization where, in case there's issues at home and you cannot, and you're new in Australia, you haven't worked well, and you need to come back home. For example, we've lost 2 students in the recent time drowning. What they needed, to bring the bodies back home, it needed all Kenyans to come together. So if you belong to groups that are geared towards self-help, like here in Kenya, and then of course we'll contribute money and support you, not necessarily to bring the body, but also if you have a loved one at home who has passed on, unfortunately, you would come home.
So, okay, there's a welfare group.
There's welfare groups.
What other groupings do you have?
The other groups
Okay,
that
let
are...
me ask you.
Yes.
Mkona chama?
Yes, we have chamas.
Political party ama chama ya
No,
investment?
no. It's the chama of, how merry-go-round.
Okay.
I think that's what is.
That is what I'm referring
Yes,
to.
yes. So that one tend to be, and it's funny how it's organized. It's gendered. Yeah, so, but hopefully more men will join these jamas, because I've seen they do wonders. Yeah.
So the Kenya Diaspora Network, as you've mentioned,
yes.
so what kinds of things are we seeing that the network actually does, activities that we're looking at taking place in Australia specifically? I'm asking this off the back of different incidences or different experiences that Kenyans have been through in other parts of the world.
Yes.
And there's always been a fight to say, look, if we can get some kind of organization around the people who live in another country, being the diaspora, then perhaps we will see a better forming of, activities. Like you say, if there is trouble, how can we take care of that? How can we say that we have a progressive diaspora out there? So what are some of the things that then the network does to then guarantee some of these activities?
So the group that I belong to, Kenya Diaspora Board, it's made up of professionals. These are people who have been in Australia for a long time, and they tend to, be in most parts of Sydney. And these guys are either nurses or doctors or teachers or migration agents or lawyers. So you are grouped according to your expertise. So if you're good as a lawyer, then you'll be helping those who are in facing legal issues. Of course, there's also, we lobby, and especially with the new government now, there's a lot of things that they talk about, but they don't implement. So it's up to us to come and be like, hey, this is what you're talking about, but it's not happening. So of course we do lobby, we advise, and we come in whenever there's distress calls, emergency accommodation, and basically advising students. And sometimes we organize, there's a lot of students who face a lot of mental health issues. So we organize mental health awareness meetings. We also organize police, because over there you cannot just drink and drive. I mean, in Kenya, you're not supposed to drink and drive, right? But people still do. Over there, if you do, then you're really in big trouble. You might be sent home. So we actually tend to advise and talk to students, especially the new ones, on what's expected of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any kind of liaison connect between the board and the government of Kenya here in terms of information as per how many Kenyans really are on this other side, for kind of like a track and trace, not track and trace for, keeping tabs on you, but then to be aware of the Kenyans that are outside of the country for knowledge and information purposes.
And I'm glad you asked that. According to Kenyan government, about 3 million Kenyans are out there. If you ask specifics, where are they? And then, of course, you would only get that 150,000 Kenyans or thereabout are in United States. And then, of course, 140,000 in UK. Now, if you go, and those are only found on the government census of, say, United States and UK, but it's not found on the Kenyan government website or the census of our country. So I guess really what the link between ourselves and the government is normally the embassy. So if you really have a good ambassador who's really connected to the community, we tend to function well. And we've been lucky in Australia. Ambassador Tibis was amazing, always connected to people, always visiting all these states. So I guess that's really what links us between government and the diasporans. Yes.
We now have a State Department for Diaspora Affairs, and that's the first time that we have this kind of proper focus on Kenyans who are living and working abroad by the government. Has the State Department interacted with the Kenyans who are in Australia, as far as you know? And what kind of interactions have you had? What kind of encouragement to register so that now we can harmonize and make this proper register of Kenyans who are in Australia?
I guess to give credit to the new peers, we've had probably 2 or 3 meetings online. Those are geared towards registering Kenyans and making Kenyans aware of the services that are available from the department. So it's been good interaction so far. It's 1 year. So hopefully we're going to have better and more interaction, and especially things that are meant to protect Kenyans. The problem with the government is they tend to look at diaspora as income earner for the government. They forget that we are human beings, that we have loved ones at home, that we have our parents, that we are children. Some as young as 18 are in Kenya. Kenyans are in diaspora. So really, that's the problem, is the government sees us as just money.
It's seeing remittance.
Yes. It should be.
What would you like them to see you as, and how?
Well, we are Kenyans, right?
Right.
We have rights. We've had this conversation about voting for how long now? 10 years, right? No single Australian or Kenyan Australian has ever voted. I'm not aware if any Kenyan in America or UK voted. I'm very aware that only Kenyans within Africa did vote last time. So hopefully this time we are guaranteed that right of voting. It's very important. And
so there was no voting last year in Australia?
No,
because there was some voting in parts of Europe.
I did not see any in Australia.
Okay.
Yes. And hopefully next time we get to vote. And we are not asking to vote for Member of Parliament or MCA, right? We are asking to vote for the president. That should be the easiest one to do.
Okay.
Yes.
What else?
So now you're opening Pandora's box.
Yes.
Yes. That's the general idea, isn't it?
Yes. So I think the issues with diaspora, current and emerging, are a lot. But it depends on where you are at. So, for example, safety and protection. We've seen a lot of Kenyans dying in Saudi and Lebanon. I do not understand what government allows people to go to Lebanon. Lebanon has no government, and you're still sending people there. Really, they are struggling. You're sending to Saudi. So those are the number one issue.
Government in Saudi Arabia, boss.
Yeah, there is government in Saudi Arabia.
And there's a proper organization and organized deal signed between the government of Kenya and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on Kenyans working in Saudi Arabia.
But we still experience issues of people being misused.
So what do you want? You want them to stop going to Saudi Arabia?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They should be. So here's the problem.
Okay.
We send young people who haven't been trained well. You go to far-fetched corners of Kenya and get all these young girls and then promise them all these jobs without training them. Some of them don't even know what a microwave is. They think it's a small TV. That's sad. If you go to the airport at the moment, in the morning especially, you see all these girls lined up, all with papers and, a lot of... When you're flying yourself, I don't see you carrying all this paperwork, right? Yeah, so that's a telltale sign that there's some issues here. So what needs to happen? These girls needs to be trained on domestic work.
Yeah.
Proper training, not just this. But you start with regularizing the agencies. Where the problem is the agencies. These people are making money off our young girls, but they do not protect them. So those are the safety issues that I have with
that you're
government.
raising.
Yes.
Joel, as you raise these issues, actually, credit to the government, those things are in place. And they've been put in place. Yes, there are rogue agents who do not follow these procedures. But the deal that is signed between Kenya and the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia is that there will be a platform where work is registered. The person who's looking for work in that country registers, and the Kenyan agent goes and sees the kind of workers that are sought. There is training that happens, supervised by NITA. And then the worker is sent to that country. So if they are rogue workers, I agree with you, because that's a complaint that we hear all the time. So how would you like the government to rein in on these rogue agents that are sending Kenyans, bypassing what should be done?
Yes. So I think the problem is these agencies really, we've had stories, ran and operated by politicians. So you're talking of regulation by the people who are running these organizations. That's where the problem is. So I think number one thing is we should stop politicians from doing business.
We will be interfering with their fundamental rights.
In other countries,
so they'll argue, right?
In other countries, so they should not be, running it front. They can own the business, but not necessarily.
But Joel, I do see your point.
Yes.
It's the same argument that has been raised about people in the public service also doing business with the government. Yes.
The direct conflict of interest.
Yes, it is. So, again, they are the lawmakers. And as you correctly put it, we have also heard that there are individuals who are in high political positions who actually own. But then I would also argue that because they are such individuals, it is a lot easier. It seems difficult. It's a lot easier to put pressure on them to ensure that law and order is actually followed.
Indeed.
Yes.
I mean, look, so a couple of weeks ago, the PS for the Ministry of Labour was here and we raised this question, quite extensively with him. And one of the things he did say, just, to reiterate that, is that, they've put certain measures in place because, it really does get to... I hear what you're saying about being at the airport, and we raised this particular issue. Being at the airport and you're seeing young girls can't be more than 15, 16, 17 years old, really being left, to their own.
Yes.
And so one of the things he said was that there's going to be further collaboration then between the Ministry of Labour and the Ministry of Immigration, the ministry under which immigration falls, to then make sure that even at the point of departure, there is extensive questioning as to where these individuals are going, under which NITA certified agency that they are with. If they are not, they can actually then deny travel based on that. He also did mention that one of the things is that because they're dealing with this monster that has been there for so long, to start to then unravel the threads that have been, embedded so deeply, it's going to take some work. But there's also an agreement whereby, like Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is one of the most, prominent issues, that it's not just sending people certified from Kenya, but then in terms of who is receiving them, it has to be clear that an agent has received them on that side and that they're working and that they can be, traced and tracked at any one time. But it is going to take time. But I hear what you're saying, that how then do you make sure that it actually happens if folks who are in the business are actually those who should be superintending over the thing, you know?
But remember also, there is a problem here of demand. There are so many young people who are looking for opportunities.
Absolutely.
They are completely unaware of some of the things you're discussing here. Nothing has ever exposed them to the dangers that we see. It's when one is focusing on the benefits that they think they will get, nothing else matters. So even if they have parents, the parents will support the idea of their child going. Remember, there's also this matter of prestige that your child is living and working abroad. Okay?
Doesn't matter what they're doing.
No, what they're doing is another detail, but they're abroad. Okay? All these things lumped together, it makes these young people easy prey. It also makes their parents easy prey. Yes.
And I'm glad you brought up the issue of, regularizing now, these movements. And that's a welcome, really, development. We all have been yearning for something like that. At least something is getting done. What I have an issue with is, it's not really an issue. I hope as you deny people to exit, you are also aware that they've paid money.
Yes.
And that their money, because all these people actually suffer, they might have, sell their properties and, to pay for the agency fee and travel out there. So I hope as they stop them, there's also follow-up that, hey, these kids are going to get their money from these agencies. So because that's a lot of money. The other thing I need to bring up is, the new changes are really good, but I would go a step further. There's need to make sure that there is, when you send young kids to, say, Saudi Arabia or any other country, agencies have to be doing check-ins every often. So the first year you are there, of course, you're still struggling and all that. They should do check-ins every 3 months. What are these check-ins? It's just a simple phone call. I mean, look, we have internet now. Just a simple phone call. Are you okay? After that, maybe 6 months and all that. Those will help make sure that these kids are coping well and they're doing the job that they went there to do. Those are simple, but it can protect a lot of lives.
They do a lot. Joel, the Ministry of Labour and the government has also proposed something. We talked about welfare of Kenyans living in and working in the diaspora. So there are times when Kenyans who are living and working outside the country find themselves in positions of distress, and they don't have close family members to sort them out, to help them, to come in. So this proposal is to establish a migrant workers welfare fund. You've heard about it?
Yes.
How much have you heard about it?
Not much really, but I guess some of us in diaspora have really talked about this.
Okay.
And it's something that most of us are advocating for.
Take us through the welfare issues that you deal with, for example, as a leader of the diaspora community in Australia. Some of the welfare things that you're dealing with on a regular basis, and how the establishment of a formal fund would then come in to help. So
the issues might sound minute to a lot of people, but to a child who's been sent to school there, it's huge, because you have no parent or anyone to turn to. So, for example, you've come there, you don't have a job, or you're at work and then you get injured and you cannot go to work for, say, 2 months, 3 months. That life is not sustainable. So we've also had issues with, young girls, getting children, and then the people who are responsible are not there. How do you help them? We've had issues of mental health issues because of stresses. There's a lot of stresses there. So these are the issues that we look at in our organization. So how do we help them? So when it comes to someone passing on, we contribute certain amount of money, and that will at least help in supporting the families. The same goes for these people also who have gotten injured and they cannot go back to work immediately. We might call on other Kenyans to host them. That's a lot of help. Or we take food that doesn't expire. So it sounds minute, but it's not. It's life and death situation there. Also things to do with if someone is pregnant and cannot raise a child there, is there an option of sending back home? They stay for a while, say 1 year, and then come back. We've had 2 occasions where we've done that, and they've come back and continued with school. And you see now that changes the life of not only that person, but also those who are there. That there's help instead of just going to the streets and putting yourself in other dangers.
The proposal here is the establishment of the Migrant Workers Welfare Fund, is where all of you people who are living and working abroad will be contributing mandatorily to this fund. Okay? And now you're putting aside some money into this fund that will sort out some issues. For example, you need to come back home. It's a medical emergency. It sorts you out. You have been repatriated. It's helped you coming back home. In the event of death and the body needs to be brought back home, it also comes in handy. It also offers some sort of medical insurance for workers who are Kenyan workers in these countries. Does that address the real pain points for the migrant workers?
It does, but a government doesn't know how many Kenyans are out there, or are they even going to get these Kenyans to contribute? So really, that's a dream that's just, it's not going to happen.
It's interesting, Joel, because then I think it goes back to the fundamentals that you were speaking about. So I hear you saying essentially then that the act of creating this fund or this particular policy, essentially from what you're saying, is invalid if you don't have the initial processes that are necessary for you to know what's going on. Do you know how many people, let's take Australia as an example, because that's what you resonate with now. Do you know how many Kenyans are in Australia? True figures. Are you in liaison with the Kenyan High Commission, Kenyan ambassador in Australia to have this information? Are they doing the due diligence to make sure that they know who is there? Do you know how many are there in a working capacity? Do you know how many are there in school? Do you know how many children were born of Kenyans in Australia? At that point, with that information, then you can now come out to say, in an event that 1, 2, 3 would happen, this is how then funds would flow. So are you saying that that's all nice, it's great, but we're building castles in the sky? You don't have the fundamentals. So would you be more comfortable if they went through that process? Oh, no, not just you, but anybody really. If they went through that process of making sure that you have, the tent hooks in the ground first, before you now say, let's build on it, it would make a lot more sense than for everybody else.
So I think, look, Kenyans in diaspora are very organized people. They have their own groups and they know why they are in those groups. Now, government and this mandatory contribution is going to be a long haul. Look, you will have to deal with issues to do with navigating the laws of that country. I mean, not even my employer is going to recognize that the Kenyan government wants money from me, because I mean they will have to go to my employer, right? My payslip to be directed to whatever the fund they're establishing. So that's going to be a hard one to do. Even so, navigating the laws of that country in itself is going to be a whole tall order to do. Also, remember, people who are there grown-ups. They have their own issues to deal with. So if you are Kenyan there, my advice would be you join a group, be part of the community. If you're isolating yourself, really, then you're exposing yourself to a lot of dangers out there. But government should actually talk to Kenyans and encourage them to form
all these welfare groups,
welfare groups
where they can support them.
Absolutely. And
I see this thing working though in instances where the government of Kenya has signed a deal with another government. For example, the deal that is between the government of Kenya and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates, where there's a clear formula where they're saying this is how Kenyan workers shall come to this country.
Absolutely.
There will be agents who are recognized and registered in Saudi Arabia. There will be agents who are recognized and registered in Kenya.
Yes.
And these are the agents that will be sending workers to Saudi Arabia through these channels. So there it's easier to manage because you already know this is the job, this is how much they are earning. The deal between Kenya and the UK, for example, for nurses, that could work.
Absolutely.
Because it's clear, it's government to government. We need X number of nurses, send them here. So it's easier. Now, the ones, of course, that you're saying are difficult are where Kipchumba found himself a job while in Kenya, and he got an employer in Australia who told him, come and work here. Now, that may be difficult. But then, how do you advise the government to navigate this? Because you can say, there is need, yes. It is the how that may be different. Now, as a leader, what's your solution?
I think the government should do just a few things. One, ensure that, the Kenyan consular services are close to the people and in constant conversation with the Kenyan people. I think we are tired of government talking to us. It's time for the government to hear what we're saying. They have never done that. So once they do that, and then we are able to have a conversation on the direction that Kenyans in diaspora want to take. For example, a good starter is we have high cost of sending money home, 7.9%. Other countries send it at 5% or less, and the World Bank is actually advocating for 5%. So Kenyan government is way behind in that, really. And they can work with local banks. It doesn't have to be other institutions from elsewhere. Kenyan banks are able to deliver that service. So consular services, to be in close contact with Kenyans, a regular conversation. And, these appointments of ambassadors based on political affiliation is not going to solve all these issues. We might have all these dreams, but it's not going to happen if we're still doing things based on politics.
Let me ask you a question. We have an embassy in Australia, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Which other cities do we have consular services?
So we have, at the moment in Australia, we just have one in Canberra.
That's one?
Yes, and it serves both Australia and New Zealand and the surrounding islands. Yes.
No. Hey!
Yeah.
Man.
An entire continent.
Yes. That is a lot of work. When you say you would like them to be in touch, the groups that exist within Australia, what mechanisms have they put in place to be able to communicate and to be in touch with the consular services that we have in Australia?
So we are able to actually have regular meetings, before Corona and after Corona. So I guess during Corona, we were not able to have any meetings whatsoever. So in the recent times, we've started, organizing Kenyan community events where we've invited the ambassador to Australia. And he's been able to actually turn up all the time that these events are there. And we've had fruitful conversation on what Kenyans in Australia want. Issues to do, for example, police clearance, certificate of good conduct. It's a big issue in Australia because when you're changing your visa from student to permanent worker, you really need it. It takes about 3 months to get it. So really, it's a long time to wait for 3 months to get certificate of good conduct. So really, and you have to send your fingerprints all the way to Kenya, and you have to use the Kenyan embassy. So that process slows it down really bad.
I can understand the mechanisms that are required by governments for Kenyans living abroad, obviously. Absolutely important. But Wairimo brings up an interesting point here and says that, well, there are lots of people who've left the country and actually are not interested in having the government involved in their affairs whatsoever, that they've sorted out their ways to get there, they've sorted out how they've lived, they've sorted out everything concerning their lives, and they're not interested in this interference.
They want government out of their business.
That's why they left in the first place, right?
So they think.
Well, exactly. Is that the case? Or can you really be outside and then not have this support from government? I mean, that you're obviously asking for, that even though, yes, you're out there working, schooling, etc., outside of the boundaries of Kenya, that there's still support from essentially your umbilical cord needs to be connected to Kenya still. Is that the case? Or are we saying, look, here, no, thank you very much, we're done, we're all right? What would be the overall... You know why? Because even as that comment has come, I see a situation whereby if the desire is so strong and if the clamor then even stronger, and then you have people who are mushrooming around an idea, that usually we see that the action that takes place as a result of that continuous agitation then is positive. So what's these two competing ideas? Which one then takes precedence of which one then takes, presence over the other? Leave me alone, or please be involved so that we can help?
So a duty of any government, any good government, is to protect the citizenry. So basically, even I understand the sentiments from the viewer. Look, we want government out of our business. Even myself, I want government out of my business.
When it comes to taxes.
You will explain to us what you mean by that, but please go on.
So this thing of micromanaging what we're doing and all that, the government is to protect.
Sure.
That's all we want. Simply protect people in diaspora. And when there's a distress call, can you be there? That's your job. The rest, you leave it up to us. The other one that government actually needs to come in is basically remittances. Just work on that. If they solve that issue and they solve issue of debt of our monies when we send home, they should actually really ensure that and I support the idea that there is control of where the money goes when you send money, because a lot of us have sent money home, and there's pictures of certain building coming from somewhere, and then when you come back home, it's not your building. So that's really the saddest thing. So I guess that's where the protection needs to come from. But saying that,
how do you get protection from your own family?
It's your own relative. You send the money to.
I blame the diaspora people for doing that. Really,
I don't think it's so much a question of blame.
Yeah.
No. When you start blaming, you're not really looking at how to resolve the problem.
Yeah.
You've lived in Kenya.
Yes.
The government, by and large, is not in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, so much so that they let you take care of healthcare, they let you take care of education. They actually let you be.
Do your thing.
So you cannot say that the government is in your business. They're actually out of it completely.
How much more when you leave?
Now, when you leave, you're so far away, they can't possibly be in your business. Anyway, as they say on a light note, the understanding your government for what it is and then wanting to see a change and what it can become. Those of you in the diaspora have a wonderful opportunity to replicate that very thing you want to see in this government. Because if you, as Kenyans in the diaspora, are organized to the point where you can, all these kinks that we have as Kenyans and all these problems, if you can resolve them in the places that you are, you will be the model that Kenya needs and requires. But if you export these nasty habits that we have in this country to some other country, okay, first of all, you'll be deported, okay? They'll not put up with it. Here we understand, and when you behave badly, we say, that's one of us. This is just our own behavior. Why do I say this? Given how important the diaspora and the remittances have become to this country, the largest foreign exchange earner,
Absolutely.
you do have a say.
Absolutely.
That say can only be potent if you organize yourselves. And I mean well, so that when your leadership goes and speaks, let's say to the ambassador, the ambassador knows exactly what is being told.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't stop with Australia. You go to India. You go to all those countries that are around there.
Mm-hmm.
Then, the very things that you want, as you said,
India is around Australia.
India,
It's 8 hours.
no, bro.
Just around.
There's some water in between.
But it's over there.
India.
Both have the Indian Ocean. So
Yes. Now, okay, let's bring it home. America.
point is organization.
My point, exactly. And don't let the water board interfere with it. I'm simply saying that because you are where you are, the thing that seems to preoccupy the minds of people who are in the diaspora are the problems that we have at home and how it is the government doesn't provide an enabling environment. And yet, you can do all that, a lot of that for yourselves.
I agree.
Now, when you do that, as I said, it's not complicated. You then have a very powerful voice.
We've tried. Look what
Are you giving up?
No, not really. No, not anytime soon. No.
Yes.
Look how when the campaign season starts.
Oh.
How many politicians come
No,
to diaspora?
no. Don't go
Hear
there.
me out.
Okay, let me hear you out.
So, these guys come, we all sit down. We give them our demands. We even give demands of, just hear me out, of appointments. For example, the diaspora affairs. Thank goodness Njogu was in diaspora and she understands the issues that people in diaspora face.
Yeah.
But that's not enough. That's just one position. We are, like you said earlier, we contribute the largest foreign income for Kenya. I think we the only second to horticulture exports.
It's the highest. There's no question about
Absolutely.
it.
No, yeah.
There's no other foreign exchange earner like remittances from the diaspora. There's none.
Yeah, so we deserve a seat. And it's sad that the Kenyan government normally goes out there looking for other investors, yet Kenyans in diaspora send all this money.
Yeah.
How about you look for these diasporans, put them together in a group, and it's not really the job of government to do that. I guess it's, like you said, ourselves to put
See what happens when you shock me the statements you make. I even go about pouring my coffee. You see, what you have just expressed is how Kenyans deal with issues. You are still looking for the government to do this for you. And my entire position was move away from that way of thinking. If you want to give the politicians as an example, ask yourself, how does a politician in Kenya become powerful? Usually, he has a support base. I'm saying he because predominantly it's the he's. You have a support base that doesn't move. It then gives you what you call bargaining power. Now, diaspora has an even stronger bargaining power. It's called money.
Yes, and knowledge.
You don't go around begging for positions. Please, when you guys are sitting, just consider us, because we're in the diaspora, and we're giving you this amount of money. No. You have a far more serious conversation about it because the money is needed. You're not well organized. You only think you are. You're well organized for social welfare issues.
Absolutely.
But you're not properly organized to be a strong voice. Not yet.
Yeah. I think what I've seen, some of us are still, in some small stages. But I've seen people who have really stayed there. They form organizations such as KDA and KCA. Now, the problem with these organizations, they tend to concentrate among the elites. So the business people, those who have families who have settled there, they don't reach out to the new workers, the new migrant workers who've just come there. They don't reach out to students. So I guess that's where the problem is. The few elites, and they normally tend to be associated to or brothers and sisters of politicians. So that's where you're blocked, really. They have occupied these spaces.
In which part of Kenya do you come from? Okay, no, which is your constituency? There's a reason I'm asking.
Yeah, Chesumei.
Okay.
Which is in Nandi.
Yes, I know it is. Who is your MP?
Polo. So Polo is
he's a new MP, is he not?
Yes, yeah, he is.
What happened to the old one?
He's now ambassador to Australia.
Okay, now the ambassador is the ambassador because he was first an MP.
Yes.
How did he become an MP? He endeared himself to people and they voted him in. Once he became to parliament, people got to know him. I'm asking you that question because it's like, as Kenyans, we've never quite understood, one, the power that we are given under the Constitution, and how it is, all these people we complain about, how it is we participate very actively in giving these people prominence and in keeping them where they are.
Yeah. They take it.
It's our power. We actually give it to them. We don't even donate it briefly. We actually give it to them. I am saying, you don't have the shackles that we have because as we are here and we're living here, we are these people on a daily basis. The new and clean start that you have gives you an opportunity to do many things that ordinarily you would not be able to do with the ease that you do it abroad. Now, you live abroad and you know how best you can organize yourselves to become a strong voice.
Yeah.
Strong voices, if you're in the diaspora, tends to be lobbies.
Yes.
People who know how to lobby. There are people who are good at it.
Yes.
So that your matters become... We've spoken to people who are in America, like you.
Yeah.
They seem to be organizing themselves better.
Absolutely. I agree.
Yes.
It's because of experience.
Precisely. Yeah. And they've been there for a longer time.
Yes.
Perhaps you should form some association with them to figure out how they go about their business.
And take advantage of that.
Thank you, Eric.
It's not for lack of trying.
Keep trying, Joel.
I think
and if you're trying one way, it's not working, try another.
Look.
And keep doing. In fact, very many comments that are coming in and people are appreciating the work that you do as one of the leaders of the Kenyan diaspora in Australia.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.